Hello everybody, I'm John Self. Welcome to Career Live on YouTube. We're delighted you're with us today, whether you're joining us live or you're watching us on a video replay. We're here every Thursday at 9:30 in the morning. We also post daily on our YouTube site at John G. Self at Guiding Your Career. So we hope you'll check out our just ample inventory of career videos, career tips, and then subscribe and share our information with others. We would love to have you join our community. We're really focused on helping supervisors, managers, and executives advance their careers. Somebody the other day said, well, why don't you just help everybody that's looking for a job or that wants to manage their career? And that was a great question. And let me explain why we focus, okay? Because looking for a job when you're just out of college and you're starting through the process, or you're looking for your entry-level position, that's so much different than looking for a job as a manager or executive. The resumes are different, the strategies are different in terms of presentation, networking. Everything's very, very different. One of the big problems with online education and online videos about careers is that people will give you generic advice designed for, say, people who are managers or just assistants or whatever in a department that have an exempt position. I mean, they're not a clock puncher, but and they may have a supervisory or creative role. But they, so they'll say, well, you need a resume that lists all this stuff, all the programs you know how to operate, all the skills you have. Well, you don't need that as an executive. You don't need that as a department director. Recruiters are looking at that level. We're looking, do you have the experience? And that's pretty apparent if we look at your resume. But secondly, we're looking for, how did you get things done? What's the depth of your experience? Are your accomplishments relevant to the company we're recruiting for? And what's your personality like? What's your culture like? How are you going to fit with our client? And so it's a different process. So that's why we focus on supervisors, people who are first level moving into management, and we want to commit to resources to those people, managers and department directors, as well as executives. So that's what we do on this page. And every Monday through Friday, we produce a video. Usually they're less than a minute. Sometimes they're shorts. We kind of always had the theme of Got a Minute for you to take time out to watch the career tip. Some of our videos are a little bit longer. They're about 2 minutes. Today, I want to call your attention to our video. It's about how the job market has changed at the manager, director, executive level. Yes, the jobless claims decreased this week, according to the release earlier today. However, at the management level, you still have a lot of a competition for the job. So, there are a lot of jobs out there, but, when you start talking about where they are and how much they pay, there's a big portion of those jobs that are available that are not really management executive types of positions. So let's begin today, and let's talk about how AI is going to affect new entry-level people into companies. Particularly, we're talking about Gen Zs now. In the past, companies had, lower-level supervisory management tasks that they would assign to new people coming into the organization. They were important, but if they screwed it up or they needed help learning how to figure it all out, it wasn't life or death, okay? And so those were great positions to teach them about how to get things done, how to work with other people, how to fit in with the culture, and how to work for and meet a manager's expectations. And that was valuable training, albeit informal. But those jobs now are exactly the ones that experts say AI will eliminate. So this will pose a real challenge for human resource executives as well as recruiters to how do we provide jobs or create jobs that have meaningful work that can help them progress up the ladder. So that's going to be the real conundrum. Business Insider had a report on that this week and said that that it represents a real challenge for CHRO. How do we train our new entry-level people? And so it's still before 10 o'clock, so we're still drinking coffee. We started with our first live this morning at 7:30. It's Career Live with coffee, and that was on LinkedIn and YouTube. And LinkedIn and Facebook. And I always enjoy YouTube at 9:30 because we get a lot of viewers after the fact. But anyway, thank you for being here today. Now, so that's the first issue we've talked about is how AI is going to do away with some of the very jobs that companies used as entry-level positions or entry-level points for new college graduates or new people in the workforce. So that'll be very, very interesting. Complication is that most companies do a just horrible job in training managers. Okay, so the managers who are supposed to be training the new people coming into the company are really, they've got their own challenges. And in fact, one report said, it's a rough time for rookie managers and their teams. 40% of employees feel stressed or anxious about work due to a first-time manager, with 1 in 5 losing sleep over the situation, according to a new poll. I cussed and discussed and drank a few martinis when I had bad managers. I didn't lose much sleep. An OG leadership poll conducted by Harris Research found that more than a third of employees want to leave their companies due to new managers' inadequate skills and training. And I will tell you that is a big-time problem. And what do a lot of companies do? Well, training is expensive. And as the CFO said, what happens if we invest in them and train them and they leave? We've lost all that investment. And as the CEO said, what happens if we don't and they stay? Well, here's what a lot of companies are doing. They promote somebody up to management. If they do a terrible job, they fire them and they go get somebody else. Okay, that person didn't work out. Let's promote somebody else from within. We'll look good doing that. And oh, by the way, if they don't work out, we'll get rid of them too. And the reality is, the real cost of the organization is all the line employees, all the good employees that work in the department or work in the division, they're not going to put up with that forever, and so they quit. But, management looks at this from a perspective of what's the cost benefit. And so that is a real problem with a lot of companies in America. They do not invest in training, whether it's a manager or an entry-level employee. They're looked at as fungible expenses. And, we have to be careful what we say on YouTube because they don't want anything that's unseemly. But, there's the old thing about, when somebody would say something, cough and say that word, that equivalence is El Toro poo-poo. That when companies talk about how they rank, how they value their employees, they're the most important asset. As a recruiter, I can tell you, over 27 years, that's largely a load of poo, okay? So there's some companies that have lined their employee service hallways and the back hallways with all these posters and all this other garbage, and then they don't even walk the talk. They don't walk the picture. So anyway, so that's our first sort of thing I wanted to talk about today, impact of jobs and the pursuit, how to pursue entry-level jobs. Now, let's talk a little bit about the changing job market. If you saw the blog that we dropped, the video blog, we actually dropped it at 5:30 this morning, and it's now up on YouTube as well as our webpage at johngself.com. Just click the blog page. It basically talks about how the job market is changing, and again, we're talking about supervisors, managers, directors, and executives. And somebody said, well, how's it changing? And I said, well, before and during the pandemic, it was like we would go down the road and we had the freeways were busy, but they weren't overly crowded. We could change lanes, we could speed up, we could slow down, we could even exit when we wanted to. The pandemic came along and that kind of was a few blips, but after the pandemic eased, we were all able to change jobs on a whim and not really have to pay a penalty. that, which is kind of interesting. That came along, and that inspired a Texas A&M professor said he called it the Great Resignation. And in fact, for about a year and a half, 2 years, and it lasted. Didn't last as long as I thought it would, but it lasted a lot longer than most businesses wished it had. But then that began to change and slow down, and then we had, as companies tried to exert control over the market conditions, and people started being ordered back to work from remote work situations, you had what is called quiet quitting. People said, okay, you want to jerk us around, that's fine. We're going to do what you're paying us for, and we're not going to do any more. And so there was a lot of that. And then companies, it was like tit for tat, they started quiet firing. And basically what they were doing is started to take employees that were not being productive, that weren't towing the line, weren't being company people, and started just cutting them out of good projects, cutting them out of promotional opportunities. And that was called quiet firing, hoping they would quit and they wouldn't have to pay any benefit costs associated with a termination. And so you had quiet firing, and then then now the latest we talked about last week, the grumpy stayers. Those are people who had been moving around trying to find the right place. Then things tightened up, and they found that they weren't in the right place, and they had to stay, but they weren't too happy about it. Okay, so the market's really changing. But now let's focus on how it affects you as a manager, a supervisor, director, or an executive. That freeway that you were going down a few minutes ago and changing lanes and, going at speed, or probably a lot faster than speed, that freeway, watch the flashing light, because up ahead it's going from 5 lanes down to 2 lanes. Well, you know what happens when that happens. Traffic backs up, and then there are always people who think that they don't have to wait in line, so they go speeding down the side, either on the shoulder or God knows what else, and then they get up front and they try to force their way in to the line where the cars go from 3 down to 2, or 5 down to 2. And those backups can go 2 and 3 and 4 miles and delay you an hour or more. Well, that's what's happening in the job market because of consolidation. And there's been a ton of consolidation in healthcare, retail, communications, publishing, technology. And there's going to continue to be consolidation as companies use technology to disrupt other competitors and jobs. There's going to be a tightening of the market. There still will be jobs, but it's just you're going to have to compete for them. Now, there's 2 ways to compete for a job. 60 to 70% of the best jobs are never listed. Okay, so how do you get to those? You've got to have a network. You've got to have people who will share information with you. You have to have people in the company or near a company that hears about it and tells you about it, or calls the CEO of the company that they play golf with and says, I know this guy up in East Texas, John Self, he would make a great person for you. He's done this before. He's now running his own business, but I think, there are days that he would like to make a lot more money. Okay. And so suddenly I get a call from somebody who says, your name was given to us. So that's how that works. Or sometimes you'll have a contact and you'll say, look, I hear there's this position in your company, can we talk about it? And do you think I would be a good fit for your organization? And sometimes you'll get help that way. So a networking contact is really important, because the odds are, if you apply online, are about 150 or 200 to 1. Those are terrible odds. And so you're still going to have to go through the applicant screening system computers, but you do not want to be a captive of applicant tracking systems. If you're going to be content to apply online, let me tell you something. I'm going to have to hold on just a second and wave this guy off. I apologize for this, but otherwise we're going to get a big interruption. So, I apologize for that. I'm glad I had I'm glad I had my alerts on, because otherwise every phone I had would have been going off in about 10 or 15 minutes. Anyway, so there you go. The market's changing. It's getting narrow. You're going to need people who will help you get through into the front door. Again, for jobs that aren't posted, or to try to at least mitigate the impact of the applicant tracking systems. Now, the other thing you need to be aware of, and we've talked about this on several occasions, is companies are also using high-speed computers to scan databases, public databases, and primarily LinkedIn, looking for people who match up with their algorithm. And suddenly you get this nice little letter from a recruiter who says, well, your name was identified, and we would like to know if you'd have an interest in this position. Here's some of the details. And if you have an interest, please send us your resume. Well, if you are interested, you still have to customize your resume, because it's still going to go through applicant tracking. It's just, this is more automation. Companies are going to increasingly use automation to get cost and speed up the time it takes for talent acquisition. So cost to hire, time to hire, those are two big priorities for companies. That's money that they can save in the process. And so as these systems are implemented, there are going to be problems, and we've certainly seen that. But one thing will be constant. The only way you can get the people factor involved is to have a network to help you get introduced into an organization. And so you must invest in that. And one of the problems with networking right now is LinkedIn on a peer-to-peer basis is a total train wreck, and you really have to do a lot more work now with your more traditional networking. And a year ago, I was all in on LinkedIn, and in the last year and a half, I really have seen a real degradation of that platform. It's still valuable to identify potential networking contacts. It's still valuable as a billboard, okay, in terms of companies identifying who you are and scanning your profile. But it is not going to be as successful for you. Being able to create meaningful relationships on a peer-to-peer basis, unless they put more regulation. 9 times out of 10, when you get an invitation to connect, it's somebody trying to sell you something. And so people have just tuned out the noise. So here's my suggestion. Keep LinkedIn, don't give up, but learn how to use it in this different environment. Number 2, don't accept any connection unless it benefits you. Now, the key to networking is to help people. That's true. But the key to networking is also not to become the doormat for every bozo in the world who wants to sell you digital advertising or virtual assistant or whatever it is. Okay? You just don't need those people. And when you do, you can find them. There are plenty around. But don't accept connections from insurance people or real estate people unless they are in a position to help you advance your career. Okay? Because otherwise, one day you'll turn around and you'll have 13,000 people in your network, and you don't even know, you do not have control of who you are dealing with. And so I'm somebody who early on, I've been on the platform for 19 years, and I made a lot of mistakes about who I connected with. And now, some days I do, when I see something needs to be cleaned up in the network, I get rid of people. But going back over 19 years and trying to prune the garden is not a good way to do it, and it's very time consuming. And quite frankly, at my point, what I'm trying to accomplish with my career, I'm not sure there's much value. But what I do now is when somebody wants to connect with me, I kind of look at who they are, and then I respond back and say, I'm happy to accept your connection, but this is what I do. I communicate on career management, job search strategies. I am not interested in personal relationships. I'm not interested in going off the platform to telegraph or use WhatsApp for private conversations. It's just this nonsense. And so I'm very, very, very disciplined and focused now on who I accept into my network. I tell people, and I've just posted something this morning, if that's what you're interested in selling me something, I'm not buying. If you try to do that, I'm gonna disconnect you. We all need to be more disciplined. We're not trying to hurt other people. They want to make a living just like we do. But you know what? Accepting all that garbage into your network is not going to help you. It may help them, but it's not going to help you. And although a first rule of networking is, how can I help you? Being a doormat is not exactly what I had in mind. So, be more disciplined with the people you accept, and then you're going to have to go back and use some traditional networking. We hope, I've rewritten this chapter 3 times already, and every time I get ready to do it, I keep thinking, no, that it's changing. And so I've kind of let perfection be the enemy of good. And so we're going to finish that up and get it updated. We already have 3 chapters posted in our course on Networking 3.0, and you can find that at johngself.com and just click the little ribbon on the right side of the home page, and that'll take you to our course page at Thinkific. And so, we've got some great courses there, and if you have questions, set up time. I'm happy to do a free call with you. We are content marketers. We try to put content out there and attract customers that way. May not be the best way in the world, but I hate, and the research says there's good reason I hate it, because a lot of other people do too. I hate, just the bombardment of a spam mail that comes into your DM from people who say, I thought long and hard about sending this, sending you this email, but I have this great process. And I kept thinking, you didn't think long enough or hard enough. So, we're trying to be more respectful of you, and we kind of use a permission form of marketing. So we're going to keep generating content. If you find that valuable and we can help you, great. Come to us. But we're going to try not to bombard you with garbage that you don't need. Okay? So that's kind of some of the things I wanted to talk about. Networking, it's changing. The lanes are closed. And there's a lot of congestion and a lot of angry people trying to get in and get position. And the only way you're going to be able to navigate that successfully is to have a good network. You must have a good network. I know it may make you uncomfortable. I'm so sorry. But I'm going to tell you something. I know 20 top-notch executives that are, at this moment in time, not in jobs they don't like. They are on the sideline. And as one told me, the biggest mistake I made in my career was not paying attention to the importance of networking, because he was at a point in his life that he was a little bit older, and so he was being discriminated against for ages in the ageism deal, and younger recruiters do that all the time. But he didn't have enough people that could be influencers with his career, and so he ended up having to retire early. And that's beyond sad tragedy. You don't have to do that to you. Let that happen to yourself. So today, unless you're 55 years old and we're going to could retire at any time, don't not network. That's just dumb. That's just really dumb. Build a network. If you want to talk about it, I'll give you some free time to kind of give you some pointers on how to do it. It's that important. It is that important. And it's getting more and more important each year. Automation is going to make it even more challenging, and automation is going to cover a broader segment of how talent acquisition is done. So, okay, I got this. I got some questions now. We've been up. Gosh, we got a few more minutes left. One of the let's see here. Let's see. Okay, cutting your career. All righty, that's a political deal. We're not interested in politics. Let's see. Okay. Question. Why do I have to keep customizing my resume if I'm looking at the small time here, if I've been approached by someone in the organization? Okay, if it's a big company, when you submit your resume, they still go through the process. Now, the fact that they may know about you they'll watch for your resume. But if the computer doesn't like your resume, it can kick you out. So, but you still need to customize your resume using keywords, phrases, highlighting the experience in the way that they've done it in the job summary. It's really, really important because it's not people anymore, it's machines. And the machines are using algorithms. Now, somebody said, well, all these things are pretty much the same. That is just baloney. And let me give you an example there. I can do a video blog and use reverse engineering and do a lot of research on keywords that are trending on YouTube and still only get about 25 or 30 or 35 views on my YouTube channel for a video blog because the algorithm, the way it looked at it, didn't give me favorable rating. The same video I do every day. The same video on TikTok will have over 1,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 views. Okay, I probably more of those multiple thousand views than the 200 or 300 views. And so the way the algorithms work at TikTok are different than they are at YouTube. And the way the algorithms work in the applicant screening system for ExxonMobil are going to be probably different than the algorithms at American Airlines or at Eli Lilly, So it's important that you're going to have to put the time and effort into the customization and pay attention to the phrases and words that they are using because that's how you get a higher scan score. And if you don't have a high scan score, you're not going to get considered. They kick out 7 to 8 of every 10 resumes that are submitted. So that's something you really should pay attention to. This is a question we had in an earlier deal. How many references should I have? If you're just starting out on your first entry-level job, you can have 4. You're probably going to go through 2 or 3 interviews, and 4 references will work. Be sure those references can speak to your ability, your leadership style, your management style, or whatever the elements that are key to the job is what I want to really say. And if you're at a director or senior VP level higher, you may need to have 2 or 3 panels of references because you don't want to keep using the same reference for 5 or 6 searches. And sometimes at the management executive level, it takes that many searches to get the right position. And if by the 6th time, these 4 people are called, they can get fatigued. Now, they're not going to hurt you, but they may not be as enthusiastic because they're just sort of tired of the process. Don't let that happen. Have plenty of people that you can move around, and that allows you more freedom to pick the best 3 or 4 people for one for the job that you're going for. Now, how many references? You should have 4 in a panel. Most of the people want 3. You always want to give one more than they need in case somebody gets sick, somebody has to go out of town on a vacation, or a family emergency, or whatever. You have another person that they can call and not slow down the process too much. It's going to get slowed anyway, but why would you want to slow it down on your account? So that's and the references should be a peer, somebody that you worked with that was equal to you, a subordinate, somebody who worked for you, and a superior, somebody you worked for. And you can then a 4th person, whoever's really the best person for you to use. Okay. This came up earlier today too, so this must be a trending topic. I was told never to put your address on a resume. Okay, here's another example of why an entry-level, resume and an executive-level resume are totally different. As an executive-level person, again, a supervisor, is on an upward track toward management and leadership. We're going to look at your resume differently. And here's what we're looking for. We don't want to have to ask you a bunch of questions. We're going to need your address at some point for the background check. Don't make us go ask you for it, okay? And it just, why delay the process because you didn't give them all the information? Have there been problems with violations of privacy? not at the executive level, not too much, not as much as, not even a fraction of the amount of age discrimination that goes on. Now, if you're applying online with these public boards like iHire or ZipRecruiter or Indeed, yes, there hasn't been a lot of issues there, but I guess it's possible that somebody could hack in and get your contact information. Okay, you should never be putting social security numbers on a resume. Okay, or anything that's identifiable. You don't even please don't put your birth date on it. At the top of the page, put your name, and the name should be the same way you put it on LinkedIn. Okay, and if you like this name and not LinkedIn, get LinkedIn changed, but they need to be the same so that people can find you. So number 2, your address. Preferably a home address. Because they're going to need to do that for the background check. Number 3, your telephone number. Specify if it's a cell phone or if it's a home number. Because recruiters, when we're calling, we want to protect your confidentiality. I have called people before, and we got the wife, and they said, "Well, who are you, and what kind of message?" I just said, "Well, I'm John Self, and I'm an executive recruiter." And there was a pregnant pause because she didn't know her husband was looking for a job. So, and he didn't bother to tell me that this was confidential on several fronts. So identify the number, and I would recommend a cell phone. Never, ever, unless you are in transition and you've been given use of your office and office equipment to support your job search, never, ever use your company computer or your company phone for any of those kinds of interactions. You have no expectation of privacy in that setting. So use your LinkedIn, make your email an active link, and identify your telephone number. That's just basic stuff. Now, lower level jobs, the address is not as important. Senior level jobs, it is more important today. John, is there a format that's best for the scanners? Yeah, well, there are some that are more scanner friendly than others, and there are always people trying to push the envelope. Don't push the bloody envelope. Why do you want to run the risk of getting kicked out of a search because the resume scanner didn't like your formatting? So here's some rules of thumb. Set it up at the top with your address and all that stuff. Do not, under any circumstances, put your contact information in a header because it can't be read by scanners. Okay. Number 2, be sure you number the pages in case when they do print them for distribution, if they're going to do it for the board, and boards usually like paper copy, that if somebody drops the pile, they can put your resume back together rather than trying to figure out what's the next page. So always put your name at the top of each subsequent page. Put your name, then not 10 or 11 point type, and the page number and the date. So that makes it easier if something unseemly happens to your resume. And should I use a cover letter? If they ask for a cover letter, send a cover letter. If they don't ask for a cover letter, do not send a cover letter. Why? Because some applicant screening systems don't process the cover letters appropriately. So if they ask for it, send it. Don't try to outfox or try to impress the computer that you're going the extra mile. The computer doesn't care. In fact, the computer may get confused. So don't do what they're not asking you to do. Okay? I know that we, at certain levels in our career, we think we're smarter than the machine, or we're smarter, we know more about how to get a job because we've had to too many times. That's great. But check your ego at the door. Stay within the system. Follow the rules. Don't try to argue with the computer. It's not a winning proposition. Okay? Alrighty. Well, I think we have pretty much gone overtime today, but I appreciate you joining us, and I hope that you'll visit our page. I want to tell one last thing before I go. We're building a community. of people interested in their careers and developing their careers. And this is going to be a community. It's going to be a paid group, but it's going to be a very nominal fee, and it's going to be designed so that members of this community get big discounts on our courses, on our coaching calls and things like this. So we will be announcing that later this month. It's something we're all very excited about. Right now, coaches, we sell information, but in 5 to 7 years, you're going to be able to get this and hopefully more up-to-date information at a drop of a hat. So what do I sell? Well, at that point, what I sell is support, and what I sell is community, and the support of the community, and become a broker for information, not trying to just sell information. So my job's going to change too. If you're in that line trying to go from 5 lanes to 2 lanes, you have to be adaptive. You can't afford to get frustrated. If you are in so many areas of looking for a job, you've got to be adapted. If you have to adapt, and you've got to be patient, and you've got to do some things you don't want to do. Not illegal, but things that you might not like to do, like pick up the phone and call somebody. Okay, that's a great way to finish today. Thank you so very much for joining me. I really enjoy this. Visit our YouTube page, please, and subscribe and look over what we have to offer. Also, join us if you want to go back and listen to any more of this. It'll be posted on YouTube later today, or you can join our live feed on Instagram at noon and at TikTok tonight at 8 o'clock. TikTok's the crazy one. We'll have 1,500, 2,000 people or more tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week. Thanks so much.